Fantastic. Okay. Good morning. As a preliminary matter, this is John Brescher, the chair of the Town Government Study Committee, from that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rick Atherton.
Here.
Campbell Sutton. Sorry.
Here.
That's
fine.
Let's see. Tucker Holland.
Here.
Curtis Barnes.
Here.
And it looks like Miss Hillary Rayport would like to join, so I'm going to admit her.
And it's pretty much just the mom.
Okay. So anticipated speakers on the agenda. Hello, Hillary. I'm not sure if you're going to speak under public comment at this point, but Hillary Rayport is here to speak as well. So this open meeting of the Town Government Study Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, almost a year ago now. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed to and encouraged to participate remotely. That would be foreshadowing for today. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment to those members of the public who have joined via Zoom. For this meeting, the Town Government Study Committee is convened by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Also, our meeting materials, all supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. All right, so now we're going to turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover a couple ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly. And for any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. I cannot tell you how sick I am with that. All right. So let's get into the agenda. So first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda as written. May I have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Campbell Sutton.
Aye.
Tucker Holland.
Aye.
Curtis Barnes.
Aye.
And the chair, John Brescher, votes aye as well. All right, thank you all. Next item is public comment. Hold on a second. Let me just close my door because I've got some rabble rousers out in the hall. Shut it with authority. All right, public comments. Hillary, you are the only member of the public. Is there anything you'd like to?
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Thanks. Happy to be here. I just came to a topic of interest that, you and I chatted about is on the agenda. So I came to support that in any way I can. If you want to call on me, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. But no, I don't have any public comment. Thank you.
I'd love to actually, I don't know that I want to necessarily take this out of order, but my suggestion is, so I submitted, Hillary, thank you for that great discussion. Thank you for all the materials. I sent that over to our committee. My suggestion is sort of going to number 5 on our agenda with the update from the chair regarding a discussion with the public for the NP and EDC. My suggestion is if sort of we have the consensus of the committee, and I'm going to guess that we do, that we take this up as an action item at our next meeting and basically invite you to sort of speak and give a full presentation, for lack of a better term, if that makes sense with everybody. I mean, I can certainly go through our talk. I found it really interesting, but that would be my sort of recommendation, sort of jumping a few steps ahead. Yes, Campbell.
I would support that, as I've had an opportunity to read through the material presented, so would like to hear more. So I'm in support of an invitation to speak.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. My suggestion would be that we do it, sort of a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, somewhere in that ballpark. To keep, yes, Curtis.
My only question is, did I get the stuff you're talking about, or what is it?
I hope you did. How about that? I hope you got this stuff. It involves the NP and EDC and sort of the comparing and contrasting to.
Yes, I have that report. Okay, it's the difference between a board and a commission is what I'm looking at. Okay, got it.
Campbell, do you have anything?
Oh, no, I was just going to say what the date of the email was with your attachments in case
Thanks.
help anyone find the information.
So just in terms of trying to keep on track, is that, basically, I appreciate that Hillary's here. I don't want to necessarily jump into this if we haven't really noticed it as an agenda item because I think it's something that we should, if sort of with the consensus of the committee here, that if it's something that I think we should look at, then I think we should properly notice it as an agenda item, invite Hillary and have a real sort of robust discussion.
Well, I actually read it.
Whoa, what's that about?
All right.
So, Hillary, does that, we're going to invite you back more for public comment right now. Does that all make sense that we basically sort of, this is sort of the teaser or the appetizer that, yes, this sounds like a good idea. Let's have you come back and really sort of delve into it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm happy. It's just something that I've been looking into that I found was interesting. I wanted to share observations, and if you would like to invite me back to actually be part of the agenda, I'm happy to do that. I might hang out because for the discussion, because I had some other things I might like to participate in on other topics, and but yeah, I'm very pleased that the committee would like to have a real deliberation about this topic, and I'll try to be sure to be here to be part of that.
Well, sure. I mean, if that's the plan that we invite you back, I mean, we'll coordinate something with you to make sure it works on your schedule. All right. So, any other public comment at this time? Not really hearing. I mean, we'll invite you to chat with some of the other topics too, if you have questions, etc. Okay. Moving on, the approval of the minutes of February 17th of. Oh, yes, Campbell.
Other than the addition of my name to the participant, yes, I would move to approve the minutes of February 17th, 2021.
That's what I noted too. You left her out, but if we put that in, I second.
Man, you really did read everything, Curtis. Nice job.
Trying to catch up.
Thank you.
We missed you, Curtis.
That's right.
Well, you can't do Wednesday morning when I'm Father Kurt at St. Paul's, or you come to church and I'll take care of you there.
There you go. All right, so motion's been made and second by Curtis to approve the February 17th meetings with the addition of Campbell's name. Let's see, we'll do a roll call vote for all in favor. Rick Atherton.
Aye.
Campbell Sutton.
Aye.
Tucker Holland.
Aye.
Curtis Barnes.
Aye.
And the chair, John Brescher, votes aye as well. All right, so update. Next item on the agenda is the update on the chair regarding a discussion of the public with the NP and EDC, update on action items. And I also want there was one other item that was not sort of anticipated on the agenda, but I did send the meeting materials about, and I'm actually going to talk about this one first. So on last Thursday, I participated in a Zoom meeting with a member from Wayland, and our town clerk, our town moderator, and a member of the town governance study committee of Andover and the town clerk of Andover. And the gist of it was, if you went through the PowerPoint presentation at all, about how to have remote participation for open town meeting. And so it was a really interesting discussion on this. And I'll just hit the real highlights quickly. First off is that they have huge uphill battles to get this anytime soon. Whether they be legal battles in that it's not allowed by law yet, or sort of tech battles that they're not sure exactly how to do this, quote, securely or safely. That being said, the person from Wayland who's been working on this, he was a big proponent of the electronic voting, and he was trying to figure out a way effectively to have participation remotely, sort of during COVID and after COVID, via, it wasn't even via Zoom. It was basically through a website that anybody could access, whether it be on a smartphone, tablet, or a computer, that would allow them to, quote, vote securely on matters. It is really in its nascent stages. But to this person's credit, they've been very good about identifying as many problems that would come up as possible and how to possibly get around them. The one thing that they can't seem to grapple with, for lack of a better term, and I just find this really interesting, was that even if I'm going to use myself as an example. So let's say my wife Jessie and I decide to participate remotely, and we're following along to open town meeting on Zoom or whatever, and we each have our iPhones next to us. He said the problem that they have is if I decide to leave the room, or I say, you know what, Jesse, vote for me, whatever you want to vote, you got my proxy vote, go for it. They have trouble trying to work around that security. And one of the ideas that he came up with, and I mean, this, again, we're really in the nascent stages of this, was he was mentioning facial recognition technology. You know, that for so many people have iPhones or iPads or whatever, where you can see faces. But he said, well, that brings about certain privacy and concern issues as well. And so that's kind of where we're, among other things, that's where we're stalled. Yes, Rick.
John, just to be clear, it sounds like there's a distinction between the vote coming from the phone, which could be removed from the voter's control. Is that sort of where you're going, or?
That's kind of.
I'm not quite sure I followed.
Proxy voting.
Proxy voting, yeah.
For lack
Okay.
of a better term, it was proxy voting.
That sounds better, but yeah. So if you gave your phone to Jesse and then you went to Bermuda for the week.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's an interesting one with all of this. Yes, Curtis, your hand's raised.
Well, I have two questions. You're probably going to get there, but do you have to register in order to participate in this proposed system? And what about the dinosaurs who don't do it yet?
So two excellent questions. Yes, you would have to register. You basically get your own unique code, so to speak. And the other interesting part is that this is not to replace in-person town meeting.
Right.
It would be to supplement it. So
What does that mean?
So that means that if in our system, for us basically, that there would still be a town meeting held in the auditorium, but people could also participate remotely. It would be in addition to.
I think Sarah would have to have 3 assistants to control the uncontrollable part of that.
Absolutely. I mean, it will be very interesting, again, to see if this ever comes to fruition or not. But they're trying to push forward. I'm happy if Wayland wants to be the guinea pig, frankly. And you know, if you guys want to try it, or Andover, you guys want to try it and see how it goes. And you know, a couple of years from now, report back to us and say this might be worth looking at. That's great. But I just thought it was an interesting presentation that they're thinking about it and that they're slowly moving forward. I mean, just sort of baby steps, but that they're cognizant of what the limitations are and what the real concerns are. I thought that was interesting. Yes, Curtis.
How much time do we want to spend on this today? Like, given it's like so far away.
Yeah, I don't think much more. I mean, I think this was just truly the update. That's
All right, one more question.
that's about it.
One more question.
Yep.
I'm looking at your material that's Wayland Open Town Meeting, and it shows this gadget for the electronic voting. Do they use that now at their town meeting?
I think they do.
Is that what we're talking about at our town meeting?
For electronic voting,
Yeah.
maybe something similar.
I
Campbell.
Chair, I believe we use those for last town meeting in person. Last year, we were there for an hour and a half or 2 hours or something with the electronic voting, and those, or that type of machine was what we used. And one of the things I appreciated about the research that Wayland was doing was the positive feedback they had as results of using that electronic voting. I believe that they found that voters make decisions on the merits without concern for consequences, from family, friends, neighbors, what have you. Town meeting was more relaxed, deliberate, and methodical. Decisions that are made are better and to the benefit of all the Wayland residents versus necessarily one individual or another. And town meetings were shortened by an average of 3 hours. And they have an annual town meeting of about 600 voters with town elections averaging 2,100. So I think they're in the same ballpark, but they have been using that electronic voting that we just started last year.
Well, I think we signed a contract to do it again this year, if I recall.
I think that's right. So anyway, I thought this was it was an interesting little tidbit, little presentation. I don't think anything's coming of it anytime soon, but again, just sort of an FYI. Yes, Campbell.
So to your point and to Tucker's point, I think the thing to keep an eye out with this is the number of towns that with this initial research follow along, because in the end, the legislative piece of this is quite large. And I think that once you get enough town supporting, open town meeting support of this sort of thing, you'll see things move ahead quicker. So I think it's really good to know early on so that we can be tracking it in terms of its progress on a more global level or state level, I guess. So those are my thoughts, and thanks a lot for participating in that.
Oh, my pleasure. It was interesting. Okay, so we moving on. So I did have a lovely chat. I think some of you all also did with Hillary about the NP and EDC. I think it's a great idea that we invite her to the next meeting, have the chat with her about sort of what we can as an interesting topic to look at. What in all facets here.
John, does that further our assignment, though, to report to town meeting from town government?
Well, that's a good one, Curtis. I don't know, to be honest, and that's something I would like to check to see where NPEDC falls within the town charter versus not. I honestly don't know, but I think the more information we can get on it, probably the better.
Well, I lived with the chairman of the planning board for 12 years and went through a great deal on planning versus MPDEC.
Mm-hmm.
but it's got to be part of our charge for us to spend the time on it. So if you would do that and let us know your feeling, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, that's fine. I'll take a look. All right, so then as far as, oh, Hillary has something to say.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that part of the reason why I came to you all to talk about this was I did talk with Libby about it, and she directed me to talk with you about it. So maybe check in with her, which is probably what you were planning to do, but I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yes, Campbell.
Sorry. And also I think that this, the addition of this, as well as the piece that came in from Ms. Ferrantella earlier in the week, talks somewhat to a point we've been discussing. We may want to talk further about under Town Government Study Committee and its format, and what you were speaking of when you were saying that the Andover chair of the Andover Town Governance Committee was there, and that sounded like more of an interesting concept or construct around which, with some investigation, maybe we could find out if they're more of a ongoing kind of a committee that looks at issues that come up throughout the year versus doing sort of, you know, we've been trying to do one kind of thing, but we keep getting little bits thrown at us that are expanding that. So just a thought. Bring
So
up.
I think Campbell, that's an excellent point to raise when we get to some of our action items or topics to investigate, either the next meeting or the following meeting, with the role of the Government Study Committee. I think that's a good clarifying point. Yes, Rick.
If we just read the first sentence in the charge on our website, the responsibilities of each town government are to review the structure of town government, including the town charter and so on. So it seems to me on the surface, our charge is quite broad, Curtis, and that may be the simple answer, but we'll find out more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think if those are all the updates that I have. At this point, I think probably the next one to jump into is the discussion of our unresolved items on our topics to investigate list. And so the first one is the review of the other charters to see examples of organization of the government within the charter itself. Yes, Campbell.
So I just have a question from our last meeting.
Sure.
Just you were under the update section. Did you happen to find any information about the treatment of non-voting taxpayers in other Cape towns?
Yes and no. Yes, I reached out to my contact. He checked with the State House and he said, you know what, I got to check, not I, but that he is checking with the Mass Moderators
Okay, great.
Association. So it's there. Between that and I think Mass Municipal, I think that's probably we're going to get our best answer.
Excellent.
But
Thank
you. They're working on it. All right. So so the review of the other charters for the organization. Rick, thank you very much for pulling those charters that we looked at. I guess the question for today is, this is one of the sections that we wanted to beef up, for lack of a better term, within our report. Are we looking to be a little bit more harsh, forceful, of basically saying, look, either Libby or town admin or whomever, excuse me, get us a real organizational chart. You know, that you should be required to develop a organizational chart, and it should be a mandate within the charter.
Yes, yes, yes. It's about time. They have a chart. I can't read it, and it's not the real chart. Because my PhD studies were on how decisions get made, and it's the back channel decisions that are the way they get made.
Yeah, that's better.
Yes, Campbell.
All right, I was following Curtis with a raising hand. That's good.
Thank you.
Better. So one of the things in reading over all the charters that were provided, I found that a couple of them were redundant. In other words, they utilized the same language. But two of them I found very consumable as just a layperson. While they were not a flow chart per se, their descriptive nature made it easy to figure out who was responsible for what and how that all fell out. And I might approach it as, because it sort of requires a rewrite, at least of section 4 or chapter 4 or whatever, if nothing else. But I think modernizing might be a way to look at it. It hasn't been rewritten. It's just had amendments thrown into it, which have occurred, in my opinion, in a very sloppy, unprofessional manner that has led to confusion by anyone who reads it, really. So that might be the angle I take or would consider taking in terms of suggestions for how that can be improved. And because the language is already existing and towns just sort of put in their own little additions here and there with an overarching, very transparent structure, I think that would be helpful. I believe at one point I also sent you the 2 charts I was able to find that are diagrams of town administration, and found them to be lacking, considerably lacking.
I mean, could we, I think it's a good point. I mean, I think it's an excellent point that it's fascinating how the charter has evolved as the town departments have evolved, and we just haven't, with each one, we've just stuck them on as opposed to sort of really comprehensively redoing or looking at it. So would a potential solution, not that I'm necessarily advocating for this, but would a potential solution really just note that the town manager is to provide an updated organizational chart each year to town meeting? Rick, I saw your hand up.
Just in a general way, I think something like that in the charter would be fine, but it seems to me that as I followed our earlier conversation in another meeting, that Lauren Goldberg had agreed or was clearly going to meet with us. And if we can ever pin her down, it would seem to me appropriate that she help us redraft section 4. I mean, that's the one that her firm said had legal inconsistencies and was not clear. And I think your way of putting it, that it's been added on, just makes it very difficult to follow. And it just needs to be rewritten in a much simpler, clearer way. And everybody then can follow it. And anyway, that would be my suggestion, John.
So let me follow up on that. So do we want to, yes, first off, you're right. Lauren has promised this, but yes, I know it's been
2 years.
And I know we had a year off for COVID, what have you. And I know that she's still working on it. And what I'll do, I'm going to write it myself a note now to follow up with Libby to see where Lauren is on this. But all that being said, so do we want to sort of put the ball in Lauren's court and say, look, you've said there are inconsistencies. We want you to rewrite this, and we want to make sure there's a flow chart and so that it's user friendly? Or do we want to take more ownership to it? Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
Just to follow, I think we need to have a conversation with her before she's set off on her own.
Okay.
So I think if each of us reads section 4 closely, some of these kind of inconsistencies become apparent, and we need to point out to her where we think there are kind of structural issues.
Okay.
So when we refer to departments periodically and, number 3 or something, it's not always consistent with number 7. And there are ways to write this, I think, that the other towns have done that in effect don't have to list every department specifically every single time and say it's up to the board through the town manager to decide how to organize the town. But the town manager has to report that back to the board, to the select board and town meeting.
I'm in line with you on that one. I think that sort of tact and plan of attack makes the most sense for something like this.
Right, because otherwise we're going to be adding on and tacking on forever. I mean, if you divide up XYZ department into 3 departments, what do? Amend the charter? It's silly, so.
Campbell. Thank you for
So
raising your hand.
I appreciate the discussion here on putting this in Lauren's. I don't know who her boss is or if she's her own boss, but I feel like this is the road, this is the pavement that we have been laying on this road for 2 years. And you know, we're no close, it's like the never ending road. We're no close. So is there some way, some motion, some vote, something that as a committee we can make to put greater pressure? I think there needs to be a date. If town meeting is June 5th, we need to have something by the end of April, let's say. I mean, somehow we need to take this rock and get it floating to the top. Someone's, other than ours, because we're, honestly, we spend way too much time going over this. We should have answers by now. We should be traveling down our road. So I'd just like to get people's input on how they think we can make a stronger voice, be a little more assertive in our the result we're looking for.
Absolutely.
I agree with that, Campbell. Here's my concern for this particular section as I'm thinking this through. I think that I hate this, but I think that we do need town council's assistance ultimately, even if we give her the parameters of what we want done. I think they need to make sure it's going to comply with Mass General laws and that it works with other towns. And so while I don't want us to be beholden to them, I feel like if there's any chance of success, we'll need to work cooperatively with them. And I may be naive in that, and I may be sort of misguided, but I think that's how I see it happening. But if others think otherwise or want to suggest going down a different path in order to force this issue, I'm all for it.
We have what? So what can we set? Can a note to Lauren, copying from you, John, copying this entire committee, Libby and John Giorgio, simply state that we are working to furnish our report to town meeting as is our charge, and one of the areas that we need assistance with, for lack of better description, is or areas are X, Y, and Z. And I believe that you have committed to assisting in this manner. Please advise when we can have this conversation, and just
let's do it. Why not? Giorgio, Lauren, Libby, and the rest of us. See what we get. Okay.
I think that sounds good. That's
Go for
very
it.
good, Tucker. And I think that you can also refer back to our write-up for the select board to sort of get some information regarding how long we've been at this.
How long we've been waiting too.
Yeah, and the I believe I had sent out, which Rick sent back to me at some point. I had sent out a letter that the Park and Rec had received from John Giorgio
Hmm.
a number of years ago relating to the Park and Rec section where he, I believe, laid out concerns that he had in the structure of that section. So I can try and get that to you, John.
That may be a good one for the next one. All right, so keeping this moving. So I think that's what we're going to do for the review of the other charters to see the example. I think we sort of have an outline of where we want to go, but I think our first step is to get in touch with, Libby, town council, et cetera. Yes, Rick?
Just one general comment to
Yeah.
help us all in this. My sense is this should be something the select board themselves would appreciate. In other words, this isn't like trying to change the world. This is trying to make their world easier and more comprehensive for this. That's the pitch.
I know, and to that end, perhaps I CC Dawn.
That's what I was gonna say, yep.
Okay, so we'll add Dawn to that one too. Okay, easy enough. All right, so moving on to the update on information, what other towns do for non-voting taxpayers. So I had a good conversation with one of the liaisons for Dylan Fernandez to ask, hey, what can you do? And so he was checking with the Secretary of the Commonwealth, and he was checking with some other folks. And basically the answer he got was to check with the Mass Moderators Association to see how they represent or how other towns acknowledge the non-voting taxpayers for the sort of the Cape communities. Yes, Curtis.
Well, I was thinking about this, and there's pressure to let non-voters here have more to say, and I was reading something about having 2 reps. But the note to myself is, what if a Nantucket person owns a house in Florida? Are they going to fight in Florida to to speak at their town meeting? I know, in other words, what's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. And I'm just observing that Nantucketers who go to Florida for the winter don't necessarily vote in their meetings.
It's an interesting point.
Because my kids just bought a house in Florida.
Oh. Are they going to try to vote down there?
Hell no, they're going to vote here for sure, because they want the discount on the ferry.
Fair enough. So it is a very interesting point for where you sort of establish residency and as it relates to voting. But I think it would be good to hear from the other towns what, Provincetown, I mean, that's the one we were picking on. Maybe, I don't know that Falmouth is going to be a good example. But other towns, what they do, because again, this comes up. It's not unique. I think the other one we mentioned might have been like in Berkshires even, just to see. So we're not just totally picking on the Cape.
And I don't know that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
That I've heard. I mean, from the folks that we've heard from back in the days when we could hold a meeting in person and folks could show up and express their opinion. The non-voting folks, seasonal folks who have come to us, I don't think that I've heard anyone say, well, I want to be able to vote here and like at my residence, wherever that might be in Florida or wherever. I think it's just more like, we pay 85% of the taxes here. We, would like the opportunity to have our voices heard perhaps a little bit more than we have right now. I mean, that's kind of the message that I've heard.
I think after my meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, I reading between the lines, I think you're right. I mean, I don't know that they necessarily want to vote. I just want to make it sound like they just want to be heard so that they can express their opinions on certain projects, or sort of weigh in like, hey, this is why I think it's a good idea to make this type of improvement in the Brant Point area, or this is why we should be, paving Lover's Lane, or whatever it may be. But just having a chance at town meeting or at sort of at the polls to give their input, because I mean they certainly have every right to do so during the process.
Not at the
Yeah.
polls, because
Right.
that would be something if they were voters.
Campbell.
So on the, and maybe the idea is to try and sway vote, but it seems to me that if you had 5 non-voting five people from a non-voting tax group speaking at town meeting, it doesn't necessarily change the outcome of town meeting, and it doesn't necessarily change the outcome of 2.5 overrides, which is where we run into most of the issues. I know that there's the idea that we're a low property tax, et cetera, and that they pay a good sum in 85% of the taxes, as Tucker said. But for the most part, many of them are also the same people that put high demands on the septic, or the sewer, huge demands on the landfill with an inability to recycle, et cetera. So I think that their tax dollars are not poorly used as we expand infrastructure and facilities to accommodate them. But so I'm just wondering that out loud, like if there were 5 people, would they feel like they had a better voice? Can they use the Inky Mirror? Can they do something on NCTV 18 with a presentation of topics, like sort of like a FinCom kind of thing? And because they're not a collective. They don't all have the same opinion on everything. So, I mean, that's my wonder, is the more there are, do you get a stronger? That's what I'd also like to find out from other towns. But
Sure. Just as a question for those who have been attending town meeting longer than I have we really? I honestly, I know the little sort of annex area where the non-voters can reside.
On the balcony.
Yeah, right. And I remember, I distinctly remember there have been instances when a non-voter has been allowed to speak. I am thinking of some of the Richmond ones. The one gentleman, I think he's trying to change the ownership with the LLC, taxing of the LLCs. I can't, memory is hazy on that one. But do you, I'm kind of picking on Curtis and Rick here. Do you guys remember the representative of the non-voting taxpayers getting up and saying anything or being called on by the moderator?
I think they're allowed to have one representative to speak at town meeting.
Right, as a committee, yes, Rick.
And they have, they don't exercise it every meeting.
Yeah.
But clearly, I know that Howard Blitman, when he was the chair of that group, did speak at town meeting on some articles. And they're free to do so. There's never been any restriction. And I think a committee like that earns the respect by exercising their rights, and no one's stopping them from having a member sit down front and speak on every single article.
Thank you for saying that's. I was sort of hinting around that idea. I don't think they've done a lot. Well, not done a lot. I don't think they've spoken much at town meetings. Yes, Campbell, I see your hand up.
So my question is, from this discussion, the question comes up, are they allowed to call articles or only speak on articles that have been called? And if that's the case, this, that may be an angle for increased voice, but to Rick's point, it really is about who's running the show or who
Right.
wants to speak. But can they call an article as they're being brought up? Rick, do you have any idea?
I don't recall specifically, but I've never expected them to be able to call articles. That's different from making a comment
Right, right.
on articles which are going to be voted. So,
Yeah,
Voters call articles, so if you're a non-voter, you can't call an article.
Okay.
that's my sense. Yeah, Tucker, did you have anything?
Oh, I was gonna say, I mean, it's not as though there aren't ways that they could participate, like as Campbell listed some of them, and there is in fact the one representative they can have. I feel like it's important for us to be listening to, what they're expressing
Mhm.
and considering whether there aren't ways that might facilitate their involvement, not voting per se. I don't think anybody is, again, I'm not even sure they're asking for that, but I don't think any of us are saying they should be voters here and another place. But I just feel that there may be some things we can do around the margins that would actually allow their voices to be heard perhaps better than they are today, and maybe equally important to have them feel that their voices are heard better than they are perhaps today.
A very important distinction. Okay, and very important point to raise, Tucker. Thank you. Yes, Campbell, you had yours up first.
My apologies. I didn't lower my hand.
Oh, sorry. Curtis, you're up.
All right, well, it goes back to my thing about representative town meeting. If we had wards or zones or areas, and if I were a representative, I would have meetings in the summer, host meetings, and that would give the summer people an opportunity to come and to consider and discuss and make suggestions. So that follows directly with my bias.
Duly noted. Thank you. Okay. All right. So I think on this, I mean, these are great points that I think we've raised, and this has been probably the most sort of robust and analytic discussion of the non-voting representative. And so I think the other piece that we're missing in this, before we can sort of come to a solid conclusion, is what the other towns do, just to see what they are, in case we need to sort of go rogue to see how else they can be sort of appreciated or heard, or suggestions for them, or that there is a model, again, I'm picking on poor Provincetown, on that Provincetown may have. Yes, Rick.
Throw in Wellfleet or
Yeah, Wellfleet too, absolutely. Love the oysters.
And- like that.
Yes, Rick.
just one more suggestion. If this comes back as an agenda item,
Mhm.
which it might, because we're going to get
Should.
some more information, we invite the chair of the non-voting taxpayer committee. Say we'd love to hear from you directly at such and such a meeting. Thank you very much. And so it makes a direct connection.
It's not a bad idea at all. And truly, as soon as I find out more, I think that would be sort of our next, I would hope sincerely, in like 2 meetings, maybe 3, that we would get in touch with Gary and say, Gary, welcome back. We'd love to talk to you. This is what other towns do. This is what we're thinking, or we want to hear what you think. Please, how can we make this a symbiotic relationship? Yes, Campbell.
I would like to hear what his constituents think. I'm not necessarily, I think we need someone that's representing the voice of a majority, not just Brant Point and his concerns, but
Right.
the larger topic. And it should be the larger group that he represents.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. You know, and maybe that's something that we sort of could ask him to sort of informally poll his committee. What he thinks that what his constituent, his committee and their neighbors think are the biggest issue. Yeah. Okay, so we'll work on that one. So that takes us, believe it or not, up to other business. Hello, Hillary.
Hi, sorry, I've been here, but I had my camera off. I wanted to ask a question. Maybe I should have asked this under public comment. Is that okay?
Sure. Well, I guess it depends on what the question is, but let's go.
I just wondered maybe under other business, if at some point there might be a discussion of some of the really interesting research that's being done around like the future of democracy. I just think Nantucket is so interesting because it's a pure democracy, you know, with the people being the legislative body. And I know that this committee is looking at representative government and different types of government, and that maybe an interesting and fertile topic. And, you know, I know this committee is reaching the end, so it might be something that's tabled until the future, but is how to make the democracy that we have work better, more inclusive, have what tools are available now to get maximum participation. There's just some interesting studies. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Helene Landemore's work. She has a new book called Open Democracy that is looking at how, if you can get enough people and enough like randomly selected people, it's sort of related to the wisdom of the crowds idea. So I think that would be a really interesting thing to hear more about or look into.
Curtis, you got your hand up.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I don't particularly think that opening this committee's agenda to that topic right now is what we need to be doing. We need to focus on closing. And again, I just want to remind us that getting to Lauren and getting the town council people on board and doing their job is almost the first thing I think we need to do.
I agree with that one, Curtis. I mean, mainly because we've been waiting 2 years on it.
Right.
That stinks. Hillary, to your point, I think it's a very fascinating and interesting discussion. And I will just add that I think that is actually a nice way to sort of close the loop or circle back to that discussion about Zoom open town meeting, in as much as with sort of, because of the pandemic, because of the need for people not to be near each other, ironically, it may be more inclusive because of ways for people to connect remotely. And I think that the law is going to change within the next year or so. And I think that's going to open the door to ways, again, it sounds so counterintuitive, that a more inclusive democracy may involve people participating remotely. It's just, I think it will be an interesting, it'll be interesting to see how the law and technology and democracy progress over the next year or so. But Campbell, yes.
I was just gonna say that I believe the question or the topic that Hillary has brought up is sort of included in our recommendation to town meeting regarding the form of government or governance. In that I believe we have suggested that a committee be formed to look more in depth at options and ways to educate and make democracy, which, you know, I'm sort of on the opposite fence of Curtis, in that I really like the idea of people participating. I just don't know how to get them to do it. I mean, it is a sacrifice of time, and we all know that, but so I don't know. But anyway, I was just going to sort of follow up so that Hillary would know that we do have a suggestion along those lines in for town meeting. if we don't take this topic up again, we have recommended that it be investigated further.
Right.
Lee.
All right. Thank you, Hillary. That's an excellent question and comment. All right. Any other business?
Oh, yes.
Uh-oh. Yes. What's up, Campbell?
That thing from Ms. Ferrantella.
Oh, good call. Thank you.
I'm not what those initials stand for, but I think it has something to do with housing or something. And I thought with Tucker, we could maybe ask him to prepare us for the next meeting or something on
Yeah.
that, or maybe the question is it appropriate to take that up at this time? To Curtis's point, that might be part of the point. I don't know.
Yeah, just basically, Tucker, Christy Ferrantella emailed us and said, hey, should the people on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund be elected instead of appointed, since they're dealing, or be its own like separate town department? That may be something that we can, bring up at our next meeting, but want to put you on, not put you on notice, but just let you know that that comment came up from one of our former committee members who is a select board member. So, but thank you for reminding me of that, Campbell. That was a good one. Okay, so if there is no other business, no other business, the date and time for our next meeting. I got to be honest with you, I kind of like the Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. I don't know how about anybody else, but
Amen. Yep.
I thought you might be. Okay. So I guess the question is, do you want to do one next week, with the understanding that the bulk of the time will probably be Hillary's presentation? And if we get any more information from, look, we might get a response out of Libby and Lauren, but I don't think anything substantive. And maybe we would get something more back from non-vote, from a contact in the state. But do you want to shoot for next Tuesday at 9 a.m. and
2 weeks, 30th.
2 weeks?
30th.
30th, that good with everybody?
Sure.
It's not like I'm going anywhere.
Either one, John. I'm happy either way.
All right, let's go for it. Let's go for the 30th with the hope that we can get a little more information from some of the people we'll be reaching out to.
Yeah.
Cough, town council, cough, to see what we can do.
Well, maybe if you include dates with that, also with a follow-up on
good call.
to the mass moderators, just sort of say for our meeting,
Yeah,
this, you require this information or something, again, trying to really
okay.
Put some
make
pressure. Yep. Put pressure.
Yeah, pressure from pressure, delightful.
plumber says on Monday, they just never say which Monday, and
Right.
you're out there sort of wondering, well, okay, is it going to be this Monday?
So one other thing, Hillary, does that work for you? March 30th, Tuesday, March 30th, 9 a.m. Sweet. Okay. All right. I will coordinate with Ms. Mooney to make sure that we have this virtual meeting space reserved. But otherwise, I think we're good to go on that one. All right. With that in mind, let's see. May I have a motion to adjourn at 10 o'clock? Look at that. 1 hour. Good for us.
So move.
All
Second.
right. Motion made and seconded. All right. We'll do a roll call vote in favor. Rick Atherton,
Aye.
Campbell Sutton,
Aye.
Tucker Holland,
I.
Curtis Barnes.
Yay.
All right. And the chair, John Brescher, votes aye as well. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Very efficient this morning.
Thanks, everyone.
1 in a million.
You work better when you're awake early.
That's it. Get the coffee in the veins. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Take care.
Have a
Thanks
good
for letting me hang out with you guys.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.